Hey guys, it's Eric from foundersbeta.com, and I'm delighted to present you our video we recorded earlier on startup marketing. I chatted with Kendra Ross, who's a VP of marketing at a video production company, and I also chatted with Tiffany daSilva, who's a founder of Flowjo and previously worked at Shopify. Tune into tips and tactics on SEO, inbound marketing, and outbound, and a whole lot more to grow your startup. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'll be diving into the questions right away. Yes, so let's talk about startup marketing for startups. So maybe Kendra, you can start up. What advice do you have for early stage startup when it comes to launching products?
Just do it. Like, I hate to steal from Nike, but it is true. Just start. I see so many startups just spending tons of time trying to refine their go-to-market strategy. And there's absolutely a need for planning and a smart strategy. But there's also a need to just get your product out there and in your customers' hands, because the only way to start to make better and better decisions is to just kind of go. So leverage your existing network, leverage social media, ask for help, like start with what you can do tonight. Yeah.
Right to action.
Go.
Tiffany, any thoughts on that, on the product launch and just, getting those first set of users or customers?
For me, like I had to launch Flowjo, which I never really launched my own product before. And one of the things that I leveraged, exactly what you did, what you were saying, because you have to just go. Like you can't overthink it, or you'll get so lost in the details. Like I pushed my launch out probably 6 months because I was just so nervous about it. And then all the stuff I ended up doing was nothing that I had planned and kind of got lost in the details there. But what I did was I found influencers. I started touching base with people that I knew. Nicole Ismail, for example, is amazing. She was an old community manager at Product Hunt. I started asking her specifically, how do I launch really well? She worked with me, made sure that she was the person that posted for me, for example, on Product Hunt. And we're friends, so that it's totally legit, I promise. And then afterwards, I made sure that not only I had a nice landing page so that I didn't necessarily bring them just to a homepage and hope that they figured it out. I brought them to a landing page that specifically said what I did and what I wanted them to do from there, and made it very clear. And from there, I had just set up, 5, not crazy, but just a 5 email drip campaign, where it was like, this is what I want you to do afterwards. So just being able to find the right people before that are going to spread your message, pick a date when you're actually going to launch it, and then decide what they're going to do afterwards. And then if you want, one of the biggest things that I had almost forgotten the landing page, like me, who I teach people all the time, right, do a landing page. It's like the day before. And I was like, oh my God, I did not do this. Had to do it. And thank God I did, because I put in the tracking code and immediately I had a bunch of people that I could retarget afterwards. So it was like just planning just that little thing. And then it was like a problem for future TIFF. I'm not going to deal with this right now. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right.
See what I can sell the first couple of days and then take it from there.
For sure. Yeah, I think a lot of startups, there's a lot of strategy talk, but not much execution. So I think you just got to go out there and do it. So biggest thing. And for our audience, I haven't introduced, this is Tiffany's product, Flowjo. So this is what we actually use at Founders Beta. So you can get some ideas and about different things for marketing as opposed to Googling all day,
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yes, so save yourself a time. And so check it out. We'll have all the details on our startup magazine. So check it out. Okay, great. So moving on to the next question. This is one of my favorites. We see a lot of startups, you build a product for 8 months and you go to the market, you're like, oh, okay, now what? So, but how do you go about building an audience for your product or service? Where do you start?
Who's first here? Is it me?
Sure. Let's go with Tiffany.
Yeah. I'll start. I got this. I try to, it's different for every company, but think about, based on my product, what is the major problem that the person is trying to solve? And when I break up kind of my marketing strategy. I use Google's see, think, do, care strategy. So ultimately, if they want a product, they're on the do stage. Like, I want your product. I think you're amazing. Let's say they don't know about what I do. They're the think stage. I want your product, but I don't know that you exist, and you need to sell me on you. When I'm talking about bringing people in, I'm looking at the C stage. So it's like, people don't even know that there's this thing that could solve this problem that they have. So what can I create for them? That's a white paper or some sort of, maybe it's a 2,000 word, like blog that explains in detail how to break down a process or something. And I start bringing people in through that and tracking them or getting them to sign up for an email list from there. But you need to give someone something. It's the idea of reciprocity. Like, you have to give in order to get, and just going out and being like, add me, like, I'm awesome, or like, come to my blog with this really crappy content and like, give me your email, like, sell your soul. It doesn't really work that way. So you really have to understand the problem they're having and give them something in return.
Awesome. Great. Kendra, any thoughts on building an audience?
No, I totally 100% agree. Like, the really great thing about the internet is that it's so easy to get your idea and content in front of millions of people. But the terrible thing is it's easy for everyone, right? Like, we're competing for attention with people who are just as good at doing this as we are. So I think the key differentiator is, are you adding real value, right? So if we start with the target audience and start by figuring out who are they, what are their goals, what are they worrying about, what problem do we help them solve, 100% agree. That's where we need to start. And if you start helping them solve that, you will build an audience that cares about you, and you're adding value in their lives. And that's really the right way to do it, the not spammy way to do it.
Right.
And even video, like you do, like the fact that there's so much that can be done with video right now in a really great way. And even like 30-second shots of things. Some of my favorite news or things that I've been watching often are just 30-second snippets of something. And I think it takes a little bit of time to plan, but it can be so good.
Totally. And I mean, even like this is a great example of adding value for people, right? Like, we're solving a problem for people. We're answering their questions. We're giving them something in a way that's, low resource and really, really high impact.
For sure. Great. And I think one of the things, I learned, like, writing content, it's like, you always have to ask yourself, are you adding value? And like you said, or is it—
Do people care?
Yeah, exactly. So I think putting that quality content, I think is great, because I do see a lot of people have the content, but just, you don't want to like read it, or it's not even relevant. You can't relate. I think, so I think those are great pointers for our audience. Okay. So how about next question? So what are some inbound and, outbound marketing strategy, for startups? But let's backtrack a little bit. Maybe, Tiffany, can you tell us, like, even the difference between inbound or outbound, or, what exactly are we talking about?
So when I think of inbound and outbound, I think of, and I probably have a different definition because I never read other articles. So I make it up as like,
what's your definition?
You'll get used to it. For inbound, it's the content that you have on your site. It's the content that people are coming to you for. I think of it as when you're looking at SEO, it's your on-site strategy, your content strategy there. Right. When I look at kind of the outbound, it's how am I getting links out? What am I doing outside to try to get people to come into my site in a bit of a different way? How am I paying for it? Kind of looking at these kind of different strategies that I might use. That's not necessarily me creating something, but me going out and getting it, if that makes sense. Right. I'm sure other people have better definitions. I kind of like the term inbound. Like, that's why I kind of like talk around it.
Great. Kendra, any thoughts on like inbound and outbound marketing for a starter? Like, how much percentage should you dedicate, like, towards inbound? Like, do you go 80% inbound, writing a lot of content and maybe throw some ads there for your outbound? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So I think it depends, and this is a crappy answer, but I think it depends on the business and the industry, and even the founder, like what you have to adjust by what's working, right? And I know that outbound, like going out and getting it, can get you really quick results. So it's tempting to throw more of your time into executing things that are low resource and high impact really quickly. But I think the struggle for founders, especially technical founders, is like playing the long game and spending like 50% of your time or whatever that ends up being on like building your base content. Like, what are the things that you need that are the value added things, the ebooks, the case studies, stuff like that? What are the things that you're going to use as the base of that outbound strategy? And to convince people when they do come in, because you've done that great outbound work, that you do solve that problem for them and you do understand them and all those things. So I understand the impulse to kind of focus 100% of your time on the outbound stuff. But I personally, I feel like 50-50 is a nice place to start, at least until you have that base down, and then kind of adjust as it makes sense for you.
Yeah. When I look at it, I always look at time, money, goals. Like, how much time do you have? It's like levers, right? Like if you start with your goal, and your goal is that, you know, in a lot of startups, you know, they have all the time in the world. Maybe they're like actually like sitting down, taking their time. This is like their side business or whatever. And so they can write content. Now is the time, because they don't have money.
Yeah.
So they're going to take the time and they're just going to write the content now. And it's going to be they're playing the long game for now. But sometimes you'll have something that has been invested in. And they have these insane goals that they have to hit in order to fundraise. And at that point, you have to decide, like, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to start spending some money. Or they've just gotten money from their investors. And it's like, do I want to spend time doing SEO or PPC? And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, how happy do you want to make your investors right now? Like, are you looking for more fundraising in about like a couple months? Like, then you're probably going to need to get PPC working. And then as soon as you feel like it's working for you, then let's move to SEO and start creating those things. So it's definitely little levers that you have to really decide. Do I have the time to do it? Then let's focus on SEO and maybe creating these nice landing pages and those type of things. Or am I just going to throw money at it and like just hope for the best?
Right. Generate some leads. Yes. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great. Okay. So let's talk about, I'm sure this is Tiffany's favorite topic, SEO. So how do you go about, I know for startups, you know, you want to get more inbound links, and, you know, the more links you have from other websites, you know, you rank higher in Google and so forth. But like, how do you go about, you know, getting links from other websites? You know, I just started out, I have my site, product is ready, but how do I even go about, you know, getting that kind of exposure? Maybe Tiffany?
Let's start with Kendra. Kendra.
Yes. There we go.
So, my advice is to not wait for other people to find it. Just to go out and get it, right? This is something that people will do for you when you ask them to. So ask people for links, ask if you can contribute content to their website. If you've already built some of that great value content, actively share it, make sure people know it's there. Like, there's so many other companies that are targeting the same audience as you and talking about roughly the same thing, but they're not competitors. Like, those are great partner opportunities. They're the people who will let you contribute to their blog and will contribute to yours. And yeah, there are lots of people who aren't your competitors who are really natural fits for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I would say for anyone who's even thinking about starting a startup or thinking that maybe they might need something like this in the future, to get on whatever the area that they want. But for me, it was growthhackersinbound.org. And just start following. Like I was lucky that it was like, weirdly enough, I was in between jobs around the time growthhackers.com came out. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was like, every morning for like an hour, I would read the different articles, I would comment on them, I would share them. I would really take time to be part of the community. And weirdly enough, those like probably 5 or 6 months where I was really active in it, helped me so much later on. It created all the contacts I needed when it came to me being like, hey, I know you're an influencer now. You've been part of this community forever, even though I kind of left. Like, you don't want to be in there for like 2 days and be like, hey, I need a favor for you. Like, that's not helping anyone. But when it
That's
came to
right.
the time when I needed help, I could go back and I could ask for, can I write a blog post? Can I give a quote? Can I get quotes from you? That's like a nice tactic that I've used or seen also, is that you take a debatable topic, let's say, in whatever the field that you're in, and you ask big influencers, what do you think about this topic? And you get all their answers, and hopefully there's some contradiction there. You can kind of write a little bit around it. Like, I don't like when it's just quotes. Like, I like when the person's trying to really understand what people are trying to say there. And then after it's done, you have a nice long post. You then email the person, thank them for doing what they do, and giving them a nice, easy tweet link, LinkedIn link, include them in your tweets in your LinkedIn, and you kind of start this nice sharing process. You add it to the inbound.orgs, you add it to the growth hack, or whatever the forum is for your industry, and you create that type of system. So that's a great way of getting links. Other ways that I've seen is, this is like a lot of companies that I go into, they have been talked about in the industry, but they just haven't been linked back. So there's, I think it's Rank Tank, creates this brand mentions tool that it looks for times your brand has been talked about but not linked back, and it gives you a list. So then you can just write them and say, hey, like, thank you for writing about us. Would you mind linking to us as well? And it's it's a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't happen with everyone, but it's a nice way of kind of looking and also seeing how many times your brand is talked about as well. And then after you do that kind of audit to yourself, then you can create a Google alert, so that you can catch those as they happen in the future, and make sure that, if someone is talking about you, you can get at them a little bit faster. But I would definitely do those two things. I found them probably really the most useful.
Awesome.
100% about building partnerships, right? Like, those relationships are going to help you always.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. I think those are great ideas for our audience. So, like, partnerships, being part of the community, adding value again to the community, not just like, posting posts and asking for favors.
And don't just retweet. Like, you have so many characters.
Yeah.
Like, give your opinion, because when you start, like, I was doing it not thinking that I was branding myself in any way, but I started to read the articles and actually give my opinion in the tweet. And
Right.
all of a sudden people started thinking of me as a thought leader. I remember being really uncomfortable about that. But then I started realizing that no one was doing that. No one was actually putting forth an opinion, instead of just saying, like, great post. And even now, like, I do that. Like, there's
Right. Everybody does that, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
but if you take a little bit of time and just put what you liked about it, what quote really spoke to you, like, be more invested, because when it comes time, people will remember that you were that person that did that for their, it gave them a reason to retweet your stuff also.
Right. That's excellent. Great pointers. Okay, so let's talk about next questions. What are some mistakes you've seen startups make? Maybe Kendra, you're smiling on this. You're like, I
have a bad reputation in Kitchener for telling people that no one cares about their tech. It's starting to become a thing.
That is so true. I mean, people think it's like the tech. I'm like, it's your content. It's like your marketing. It's not so much your
tech. It's the impact, right? Like, it's how your product and your service or whatever it is changes their lives in some way. How are they better off? What problem are you solving? And I get it. I 100% get the impulse, because you've spent all this time building this product.
Right.
All you want to do is talk about how cool it is, and like how you're using asynchronous PHP and like all of it. I get it.
Right. Yes.
But the biggest mistake that I see startups make is that they're not taking the time to really think about their target audience and what's important to them. They want to talk about what's important to me, and that's normal and human and all that stuff. It's hard to take a step back and really realize that not everyone cares about the features as much as you do. But yeah, 100%, like, really taking the time to think about the human element and what problem we're solving and how we add value, and really focusing on that in the marketing versus worrying about explaining the AI.
Right. 100% I agree with on that. Tiffany, any ideas on that?
I'll give you my biggest pet peeve.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to hear it.
It's the thing that like makes my blood boil. So in SEO, I mean, the big reason why people are coming into your site is because they typed in something that they wanted and they're trying to get to your homepage, let's say. And that homepage is going to tell you exactly all the things that Kendra just said. It's going to say, I solve your problem. However, if you know what the major like thing that you do, let's say you are accounting software. If you go into that homepage and that above the fold does not say accounting software, that person is going to leave your site. It's so simple, but like, don't say like the thing that's going to change your world in finance, or like it's just like this floaty marketing jargon that people kind of, that's great if it were lower on the page or in smaller print. I always like, sometimes you'll see like a marketing jargon H1 tag. I look at H1 tags because headings are really important. They should have your keyword in it. And underneath, they'll have what the thing is. I always say flip it. Like, make that your H1 tag. So if someone is coming in, they're looking for accounting software, and they come into your site and they say, oh my God, this is accounting software. First problem solved.
That's right. That's right.
Then you're good. Like, just try not to.
Right. At least for some minutes, right?
Yeah. And the way to
session,
combat
right?
that, yeah.
Right.
And the way to combat that is to do user testing. Give it to a stranger and say, what do I do? And if they can't tell you instantly, or they have to go, I think you do, then your homepage is wrong. Like it's not, especially when you're starting out, like eventually, like certain Nike can say, just do it, because we know what Nike is. Like they put millions and billions of dollars into other things that allow them that like freedom to put whatever the hell they want on their homepage. Right. But like, you don't when you're a startup. You need to tell someone exactly what they're looking for. So that's, I think, my biggest pet peeve is something so small that could lead to them actually ranking well on a site. Maybe not for accounting software, it's super competitive, but like some other widget or whatever you're creating.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, trying to explain what you do. And I think you're 100% right on that. Like, you hear all these like, throwing terms there, and you don't really know, like you scroll down, you're like, I'm still not sure what you guys do. so that's when it's a bad sign, right? So yeah.
And I always have to ask that question. If I was searching for you, what would I be putting into Google? And they're like, oh, this. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's what you do. Like, that's right. You don't need to pitch me. I don't need an elevator pitch. I just need the 3-word answer of what you do.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next questions. We have talking about content. So we hear content is huge for startups. What do you recommend for putting together content for startups? Like the blog posts, do you start with videos? Where do you go?
So my big thing, and I get a lot of fights with this, and I talk this. So.
I'm sure anything content marketing related must be controversial.
Yeah, it's a little bit controversial. But sometimes I'll walk into a company and they spend a lot of time on their blog, and they're like, "Don't worry, we've put in all our keywords, and they're all in there, like throughout the blog. They're in there. So maybe we're gonna rank for something on that blog." And that sounds great in theory. But let's say someone wanted dog beds, for example. Like they were looking for a dog bed, and you have this awesome page that tells all the different dog beds you have based on like ranking and everything. But then you wrote like 25 blog posts on dog beds, and someone actually wants to see 100, like these are all the different dog beds out there and all the different kinds, but that doesn't give them the one that they need to buy. Wouldn't you rather them go to a page that's specifically the user intent that they have and allowing them to buy than having fluffy content about the thing?
Right.
And so when people go out and create content, I think that there's 2 strategies there. There's your SEO landing pages that are based on the keywords that you have, with the user intent of, if someone is buying a dog bed, this page has to have the different dog beds you have. It has to have an easy call to action. It has to allow them to go through and testimonials and all those things. And that's what I'm going to create. But if I wanted to sell my brand, I would create brand pages in my blog. I would talk about the different things that I'm doing in my blog. I would talk about the different maybe dog events that I had. That's your brand pages. That's how you tell people who you are, your culture. But you don't want to mix and match it, because you would never want someone to come into your site with a certain intention to buy and then end up being led to a place where they're like, I don't know what's really happening. Okay, I'll just go to the next one.
That's how it is, right?
Yeah. So when you're coming up with content, I always say, if you're trying to choose whether to do blogs or SEO, this is obviously, I'm an SEO, so
right.
I say,
I want to fight this.
Yeah. I say focus on the SEO landing pages with bottom of funnel user intent first,
right.
So that they're there, and then create the bestest blogs in the world. And if you aren't sure how to fight that within your organization, if you go into Google Analytics, you can create content groups where you can put everything that your blog is doing and everything that your SEO pages are doing, and actually compare which ones are bringing in more content, or bringing more conversions. And like, in some cases, maybe your blog is because you are that kind of company that for some reason people love you and they're going to buy from you and figure it out. But in a lot of cases, when you're just starting out and you don't have a brand, that those SEO landing pages are the ones that are bringing you money. But please debate. I'm used to it.
I actually can't fight that. That's absolutely true, right?
Yeah.
I think you should use your blog or your resources or whatever you call that page to solve the problems around your core problem, right? It's demonstrating repeatedly that, like, I get your life. I get where you're at. I understand. Here's some other things. I mean, I'm a big proponent of creating really tight, like, funnels or journeys. Like, you know where you're pushing people next always through your website. And if someone's going to come right in searching for that, like, really specific accounting software keyword, you don't want them on a weird page where they're going to have to click 3 more times to get to where they want to go. Right. But, I mean, obviously I spend more time outside of it and creating those really fun blogs where we solve all the other problems. But yeah, I mean, I can't actually argue that.
Awesome. Okay, at least we agreed upon something, right? Okay, great. So yeah, let's shift gears here for a little bit. We have many students in our audience, and we have many questions from them tonight. So we're glad to include these. Yeah, so let's talk about marketing careers. You know, both of you are incredibly successful and thought leaders in the field, and so it would be great to hear the stories. So let's go ahead with this one. What would you say every marketer should have in their toolkit? You know, what kind of skills and competency, you know, makes a great marketer? I mean, especially for startups. You know, we know big brands are different a little bit, but let's talk about, you know, the startup context. Maybe.
Well, I think. Sorry, I'm just talking now.
Yes.
I think, like, my thought is that content, and especially for startups, it needs to be human focused. It needs to be authentic. That requires that marketers are curious, empathetic people, and we have these kind of soft skills in our toolkit, along with needing to be analytical and needing to be able to understand Google Analytics and wanting to run the spreadsheets and all of that. But I always tell marketers that, like, empathy, curiosity, you have to be able to put yourself in your customer's shoes and understand what's motivating them. You have to be able to do a whole bunch of things. And I think that lots of hard skills can be learned, right? If you want to learn them, you can go learn those things. So, like, if I'm hiring for a new marketer, I need that person to be able to, you know, do some basic CSS coding. I'm not necessarily required that you already understand CSS. What I want is someone who wants to figure it out, and has all of these other kind of traits that I see as really, really necessary to be a standout, like, great startup marketer.
Great. Tiffany, any ideas? I mean, you deal with a lot of students too at Mac, and I mean, you're training the next generation of marketers, right?
I'm hoping. They're probably like, forget this. I don't want this marketing. I think the biggest thing that I tell people is to follow their passion. If they hit something that they don't want to do and they're not interested in, they're not curious, like Kendra said, why push yourself into that role? Because you're never going to be good at it. Like I'm part of this group of digital marketers. We're in the Slack channel, and we talk all day about digital marketing, and you know the people that you could go to for like technical SEO, and it's great. Like I love listening to them talk, and I'm totally lost every time they're getting into half the stuff that they're getting into. But if I had a problem, I know I can go to them and answer those questions. It will never be my passion. And the amount of learning I would have to do, I would never be curious enough to really get in there. I know the ins and outs of it. I know the 50 things that we need to check through and to walk people through it. But when it comes to that, okay, how do we push this a little bit more? I'm just not interested. And I think what happens with people is they'll see SEO, for example. They see there's technical on-site and off-site, and they go, you know what? I'm not good at technical. Forget it. This isn't for me. And I can tell you that's you could still make a career out of not being that good at one of the areas if you just keep being passionate about the others. Another thing is don't follow anyone else's lead. Like if someone were to look at my resume, they would see that I jumped every 2 years. Like I look like the worst employee.
My family makes fun of me all the time for this.
Yeah. What, like you're in another job? Like, yeah.
What are you doing now?
Yeah. How can I keep this up? And the big thing is that when I do sit in that interview, for example, what are they looking at? They're like, oh, great. You have SEO experience. You had PPC experience. You had this, you had that. And it was like, yeah, I had to jump around to get those things, because in my head, I knew where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a full stack marketer. I wanted to be able to be good at a lot of things. I wanted to go deep on one or two areas. For me, it's PPC and SEO, and learn the other stuff as they come. And if I see something that I'm like CRO, I was really interested in. So I'm like, I want to jump on that. I want to learn more. And so I did that, but it means that I have to break and go outside of the box a little bit. And I have to start doing things that maybe my teacher friends or my lawyer friends might not necessarily do, because they think it's like the craziest thing and it's the career killer. And I think what's nice about digital marketing is that it's not the case. And you can do that. The other thing is you gotta learn by doing. So even if you can't get a job, let's say you're having trouble getting a job, then try to do it yourself. Show up. And when you get to the point where someone's like, I don't know CSS, don't make that the reason you don't go into a resume. They say that, which is astounding, women will only apply for a job that they're only 80%, that they fit 80% of the skills.
Right. Oh, I heard that stat. Like, what is that? Like, is it just like...
It's just the way, because when we walk into an interview, we have to defend ourselves rather than guys can walk in and just say, I do this thing. And there are people like, cool.
Or I can pick it up, or
yeah. And you're a lot more open to that because you don't get that kind of feedback. And it's a learned trait, but men can go in at 30% and still wing it and be good. And people will accept that. And I think that you need to be a little bit more open, especially in startups, that you're not going to know everything, and that's okay. And imposter syndrome is real, and everyone's like a fraud. Like just own it. Like focus on the things that you are good at. Kind of if someone says, you know what, I thought you'd be good at this other thing, and it's like, well, I've been working on this thing, so
I'll get to this thing next.
And and because I want to show you, even though I don't have the work experience, here's 3 websites that I actually did my own audit on. I couldn't get a job, so I decided to do it myself, and this is my work. So why don't you look? Because don't let them get to the point where they're testing you. I always like to walk into an interview before the testing area. Like, before we start, then let's talk about it. And usually I never have to do the testing thing because I already gotten there. So being proactive, doing yourself, and don't just say, I want to do that thing. Maybe I'll take courses and learn. Like, just do it. Like, try to touch it. And if it means only doing your own website, or just sometimes, like I've seen students go to a non-for-profit, do an audit for them, and then just show up and be like, hey, I did this for you. Like, can I work with you even if it's for free?
Right. Great. Great pointers there for our students in the audience. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, let's talk about, we talked about the traits of the marketer. So I guess we'll skip this question. Okay, so so let's expand on that point, for somebody with no marketing experience. So let's say I just graduated from university and we know, these things don't really teach marketing that much. So, what do you recommend? Tiffany, you mentioned not-for-profit. Kendra, what do you recommend for someone coming out of school just to, showcase something on their portfolio, or how do you go about those things?
100% agree with Tiffany, like no question. Nonprofits need help, and we'll take it, right? Like if you want to go into social media, go to a nonprofit and say, hey, can I do a social media strategy for you? I'd love to execute it if you like what I'm doing. Right? Then you have that for your portfolio, and a hiring manager, that shows them so many things. It doesn't just show them that you're capable of doing the work. It also shows them that you will take the initiative and you'll go get it, and that you really, really want this, right? Start your own, like throw up a website. If you want to learn throw up a website and suggest your idea, right? Like what am I doing? I just really, really think that there are lots of opportunities to, right? If you want to work in e-commerce marketing, set up a drop ship store with, whoever around Shopify and start doing it. And there are people who I'm seeing marketers who are doing that now. That's what I did. I assume it's what Tiffany did too.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
Like when I was transitioning from my first job in traditional marketing to digital, and I wanted to figure it out, and I wanted to figure out if, the digital communication was much different than what I was writing in terms of like press releases and stuff like that. I threw up a blog, and it was recipes, and I started writing recipes and blog posts, and, can I get this to number one for, whatever search term I want? Like you need to just jump in with both feet and find opportunities to do it, whether it's with yourself or a nonprofit or a startup. Lots of startups are looking for help.
For sure. I think definitely like you mentioned, I think early stage startups are also great pointers too, you can work with the founder closely. Maybe they don't have a product yet, but maybe you can, start building up that audience. I think that's great. I think another one is also side projects too, just working on something on the weekend, like you said, throw a blog there, and I think Tiffany mentioned this one too, being part of the community. Like, I mean, if you want to be a marketer, be part of the community.
Talk to marketers, go to the peer-to-peer groups, see who you can meet. People will have coffee with you. People will absolutely have coffee with you.
My clients now are the people that met with me years ago for a coffee because they were just getting out of school. And it's like come full circle. Like it's insane how, and they become amazing marketers, like some of the best in Toronto here. And it's awesome to see because they had that idea of like, I want to be the best. I need to talk to as many people as possible. And I'm willing to buy coffees as a result. Another thing that I think that was really different for me, like when I got out, I come from immigrant background. So it was like, get a job. Like you're not thinking about your passion right now. It's like, get a friggin' job.
Yes.
And for me, like the first job I got happened to be at a web development company as a secretary. Like I was a secretary. I was answering phones. I was doing all that, but I started looking for little opportunities. And the opportunity for me came from, I've been doing SEO since I was 9 years old, but I didn't know that SEO was a thing. I never knew the words. I didn't know that there was a whole career. Had I known, my life would have been maybe different. When it would happen to be that here I was, I knew I wanted to get into the internet space. So I worked at a web development as like the secretary. So I wasn't exactly in my dream job. But then I overheard them one day talking about they're trying to rank a site on Google at the time. And they're having this conversation. I went, guys, like, no, you don't do it that way. Like in order to get, I know keywords. So I'm like, in order to get the word that you want, you got to do this. And you have to have it in this area. They're like the title, the meta. I'm like, whatever. It's that thing, the code thing. And I'm like explaining it. I realized I had no vocabulary. and I used that opportunity as, wait, this is a thing. Like, I need to go somewhere else. And I went to, from there, one of the guys there got me an interview at another company where I became a link developer for SEO. Realized that's like the worst job in SEO. Got laid off, as you do in startups, in early startups.
Happens all the time, right?
Yeah, and it sucked because I found my passion. I found this thing that I love. So then I went, you know what? Like, there's no jobs. I was in Guelph at the time. There's no jobs in this area. I'm going to go work at a management training center as in sales. And I'm going to not only learn management training, but I'm also going to learn sales because I'm going to need it if I'm going to be in marketing. So you can't just say, I have to stay in marketing. And during that time, I wasn't thinking about marketing. I was reading every sales book out there. I was reading all these different things that ended up helping me later on and understanding the sales cycle. And I think that helped my marketing style. People always tell me, like, what books do you read? I'm the biggest nerd ever. So I read actually 60 books a year.
Wow.
Like, I don't mess around. But the books aren't all marketing books. They're not all business books. They're poetry books. They're comic books. They're all these different styles, because all that is teaching me how to tell a story, how to get something in a comic book, how to get a story told in as little ways as possible through imagery, through this. So you learn all these different aspects. So don't think, I hate when I see students who have come out and they've gotten this job and they feel like they're in the dead end and their life is over and they're never going to get anywhere. And when I ask them, like, okay, what's the last book you read? What's the last magazine you read? What was the last thing? Like, you know what? I just haven't had time. And it's like, well, you do. Like, now's the time. You're sitting in a job that you don't necessarily care about. Look for the opportunities. Look for the books to read. Like, really jump into it. And you never know where your next opportunity will come from.
My first job was typesetting business stationery.
You see?
100%. That was my first job out of university. And it was, it was the same thing, like, get a job, any job will do. And I happened to be sitting with a marketing team, and it took me 6 weeks of typesetting stationery to talk my way into another job.
Wow, that's amazing.
But you can move anywhere. Like, it's the onus is on you. You need to make it go.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great stories. Great. So we're almost there. So for our audience that want to learn more, what's the best way to get connected? Are you on Twitter? Other channels? We have so many, I don't even want to start naming them. So
for me, the easiest is at Bella Stone on Twitter. I know it's a weird name, Bella Stone. And I'm on LinkedIn, or if you go on flowjo.co, I have my growth hacking kit that you saw there.
That's right. Here we go again. That's right.
And if you use the discount code founders, you'll get 25% off.
That's right. Yes, especially for our community. So awesome. What about Kendra? You're on Twitter. I see you all the time on Twitter.
Eric, we're Twitter friends.
That's
we met on Twitter before we met in real life.
That's right. That's so true.
Yeah.
That's right. We were like tweeting. Was it a marketing conference or something?
It was at a marketing conference. We were tweeting back and forth about something. And we were
right.
Like,
right. I think we should connect right after.
This is good.
We should chat more about marketing, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter. It's at _Kendra Ross. Or look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. And if you're ever in KW, Kitchener is my haunt. So give me a shout. I'm always happy to grab coffee.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I think that wraps it up for tonight. So I'd like to thank our amazing speakers. So thank you so much for both of you for taking the time to give back to our community and to inspire our next generations and marketers. And we look forward to sharing this video with our audience, and we hope to stay in touch. So thanks so much again.